Paper quilling. Hey class, new project today. Mr. G here going over some new stuff, which today we're going to be going over paper quilling. All right, so today's topic is paper quilling. Now what you guys are going to be doing is taking strips of paper and rolling them. I made my own tool for this and I'll go over that in just a second. But you're going to be taking strips of paper, you're going to be rolling them up into small filigree pieces now, and you're going to roll them up into small little pieces of wound pieces of paper, so just little spiral bits, but then we're going to be sculpting with these for our piece. So in your sketchbooks, do your initial or your first name, and then we're going to make sure that there's space inside of those letters, because that's going to be our negative space for this piece. The outside of the letter is going to be our positive space that we're going to be filling up with all of our paper quilling elements. Now, using this as a jumping off point, when I went to Seattle for the NAEA conference, there was a Zen quilling piece where they were taking the paper quilling elements and adding it to Zentangles and using that as the outline. So using this as a reference point for the project that we're working on today, where you guys are working on logo designs, check out how I'm going to teach this lesson. So simple things that you need: a piece of paper, strips of paper for your paper quilling, some glue, a pen to write your name down on your paper with, Sharpie to outline the design that we're working on, and first things we want to do is start off with putting that name on paper. And then once you've drawn out your design, for me, I'm doing my logo design as usual. I've made my own tool for this, which is I took a piece of a coat hanger and I cut out the center section of it, straightened it out with my needle nose pliers. And you can, if you got some really good sandpaper, sand down one side of it to make the quilling section a lot easier. But you just wind the paper around it, just using the glue to adhere the ends of that rolled piece of paper together. That gives you your basic shape. Now, each individual shape you're taking and you're pinching and manipulating the quilled piece of paper together, to where you create all these different various shapes that you can build with, from these little S curves here, the semicolons that were beforehand. Here we have a triangle, to much more of a eyeball shape where you're having the boomerang. But then also use other tools that you have around to bend the paper back and forth. You can use a pair of scissors. Be careful because you would have to hold the blade for that. For me, I'm using the end of a paintbrush just to dip in and give a different variation to the design, give a variation to the way that I'm pushing the pieces together. So once you've made a section of these, I'm putting down some just basic glue and then smoothing that out with my hand, adding those paper quilling elements on top of that glue just to adhere them to the paper to finish out the design. So when you're making this, I try and notice how on the other side there I've got a bunch of these blank quills that I've already made. I'm just gluing the ends together and I'm forming them as I'm putting them down. You can do this ahead of time. The reason I'm doing it at the same time is because I want to make sure that I am matching to the shape that I'm working in. Notice how I'm trying to create the quill piece to fit in that space. Remember, as we're working on this project, you want to think about the positive space and the negative spaces and how those two things are interacting, because you don't want to override the design by putting too many quilling elements together that are negatively impacting what you're trying to create. Do go at the pace that you feel most comfortable with for yourself. Don't just think that this is the be-all, end-all way to do this. I'm just going over the basics on how I'm doing it in my class and how I think is the most simplistic, jumping in, if you're new to this, jumping in and creating those pieces of art. Now, as you are continuing to add on to those pieces, again, think about the positive and negative spaces and how they're going to interact. Think about the colors that you're using for your quill pieces. Notice how on the pieces I've already got rolled up, I've got blues, yellows, oranges, a little bit of purple, some green. What would be the best way to add those colors in? But make sure that I have a cohesion, that there's a consistency in all the pieces that I'm adding together, that there's not one color that's overpowering over another. Notice how I have On the top of the G, I've got some yellows, some golden colors over there. The bottom of the G there, so it gives kind of a flame element. So it's kind of a warm and cool contrast elements there. But think about how you guys want to incorporate yours and do your own pieces, because it's always interesting to see what you guys have to build as well. Awesome, guys. So I hope that you got something out of this lesson. As always, I look forward to seeing you guys' questions down in the comments below. If you have a question, don't forget, as always, raise your hand down in the comments below, and I will always see you guys next class. Later, guys.